Welcome to our late night storytelling channel. We hope you enjoy listening to our stories. Please subscribe to our channel to receive our latest videos. Thank you all for listening. I was never the kind of woman people remembered. Not in the way other girls left a room humming with their perfume or a glance that lingered long after they were gone. I was soft-spoken, the type to smooth the wrinkles out of the tablecloth before guests arrived, the one who knew how everybody in town took their coffee and never forgot a birthday. My name's Grace Whitmore. I'm 34, 5'6". Chestnut hair I wear in soft curls when I have the time, though most days I pin it up to keep it out of my face. My skin tans easy in the summer, leaving freckles on my shoulders no matter how careful I am. Hazel eyes, a mouth too full for my narrow face. Sam, my husband, always said I looked prettiest in blue. We've been married 12 years. He runs the feed store his father left him. I run the house, a modest 2-bedroom place on Maple Road. White shutters, a porch swing that creaks when the wind blows, a garden I tend in the evenings when the light turns soft and the air cools. People think we're happy, and in a way, we are. It's the kind of quiet life most women in this town settle into. Sunday church, potlucks, laughing at the same jokes we've heard 100 times. Nights spent in front of the television, the hum of the fan the only sound between us. But some nights when Sam falls asleep and the house grows still, I stand by the window, looking out at the sycamore trees, and wonder if this is it, if this is all there's meant to be. A life measured in grocery lists, polite smiles, and hands that only ever touch out of habit. And then I met him. I didn't mean to. It was a Tuesday, hot. The kind of heat that sticks to your skin and makes you ache for something cold and wild. I'd stopped by Miller's Hardware to pick up paint for the back fence. My dress clung to the small of my back, hair falling loose around my face. And as I turned the corner near the old windmill, I wasn't looking where I was going. I bumped into him, hard. His hand shot out to steady me, palm rough against my arm. The world slowed. I remember the way his eyes fixed on mine. Not polite, not curious, but like a man recognizing a piece of his own loneliness. I felt it, right down to my bones. "Easy now," he murmured, voice low and rough, like gravel under tires. I don't remember what I said. Maybe I didn't say anything, but I didn't pull away. I left without asking his name. But that night, as I lay beside Sam, listening to the familiar whistle of his breath when he slept, I saw those eyes every time I closed mine. I felt the heat of that rough hand against my arm. I told myself it was nothing, just a stranger passing through town. But Windmere's a small place. Strangers don't stay strangers for long. 2 days later, I saw him again. I was coming out of Millie's diner with a bag of takeout for Sam, meatloaf and mashed potatoes, the same thing every Thursday. The late afternoon sun painted the street gold, and the cicadas were loud enough to drown out your thoughts. He was leaning against an old truck by the gas station, cigarette between his lips, 1 foot up against the tire. Black t-shirt, faded jeans that clung to his hips in a way no decent man's should. And he was watching me, not like the other men in town did, not with pity or harmless flirtation, or the kind of glance you pretend you didn't notice. This was different. This was dangerous. I could feel it in my chest, that ache, that sharp, traitorous pull. I should have looked away. I didn't. Instead, I lifted my chin, smoothed my dress, soft white cotton that clung to my hips in the heat, and kept walking. I could feel his gaze trailing over me, like a hand down my spine. I told myself it was nothing, but God help me, I wanted to turn around. The third time, it rained. One of those late summer storms that comes out of nowhere. The sky cracked open while I was halfway down Mill Creek Road, and by the time I reached the old covered bridge, I was soaked to the skin. And there he was, parked under the trees, leaning against the hood of his truck, watching the storm roll in like he'd called it down himself. I pulled my car over without thinking. The air was thick with the scent of wet earth and something electric. My dress clung to me, transparent in the rain. I crossed my arms, but it didn't help. He smiled, slow, crooked, like he already knew my secrets. "Storm will wash you clean if you let it," he said. I didn't answer. I just stood there, rain sliding down my neck, my chest, my thighs, my pulse a wild, frantic thing. His eyes dropped to my dress, and then, without a word, he moved toward me, close enough that I could feel the heat of him through the storm. "You gonna keep running, darlin'?" he murmured, voice a low rumble I felt in my bones. I should have said yes, should have gotten in my car and driven home to Sam and my quiet little house with the creaky porch swing. But I didn't. I stepped closer. Close enough that his hand brushed mine. A spark. A jolt. And then the world went very, very still. I didn't know his name, but I knew what he tasted like before the night was through. His name was Cole. I found out a week later when Millie, the waitress at the diner, asked if I'd met the new man fixing up the old Stanton place at the edge of town. "Cole Bennett," she said, pouring my coffee. Trouble with a capital T, if you ask me. I didn't ask, but my fingers trembled around the cup. After that, it felt like fate was playing a cruel, relentless game. I saw him everywhere, at the market, at the gas station, leaning against the fence outside the feed store, while Sam loaded sacks of grain into his truck. He never spoke, just watched, and I let him. I wore dresses I hadn't touched in years, let my hair fall loose around my shoulders, wore lipstick, telling myself it was for me. But it wasn't, and the nights grew unbearable. Sam would fall asleep with the television humming, his arm heavy around my waist, and I'd lie there, staring at the ceiling, my skin aching for a touch I had no right to crave. I told myself it was nothing, but lies have a way of rotting you from the inside out. The fourth time it happened was at Miller's barn dance. The whole town was there, paper lanterns strung between the rafters, a fiddler sawing through old tunes, the scent of fried chicken and sweet tea thick in the air. Sam was drunk by 9, laughing too loud, bragging about some deal he'd made. I slipped outside for air, and there he was, leaning against the side of the barn, cigarette glowing in the dark. I should have kept walking, but my feet betrayed me. I stood there, not 2 feet away, the music and laughter a distant hum. He didn't say a word, just reached out and brushed a strand of hair from my cheek. His fingers lingered at my jaw, rough and warm, and God help me, I leaned into it. The world tilted, and before I could stop myself, I whispered, "Why are you doing this to me?" His hand slid to the back of my neck, pulling me closer until our foreheads touched. "Because you're the only thing in this goddamn town that makes sense," he rasped. And then he kissed me. Not soft, not gentle. It was hunger, it was punishment, it was every lonely night poured into one reckless, burning moment. I kissed him back, and when his hand slid down, gripping my hips, pulling me against him, the guilt was a distant, flickering thing. I didn't care. Not then. It didn't stop. Couldn't. We were reckless, parking at the edge of Miller's Creek, behind the old church, in the hayloft at midnight, with the wind howling and the scent of rain in the air. Every touch was a gamble, every glance a risk, and the more dangerous it became, the more I craved it. I told myself it would end, that one night he'd be gone and I'd go back to my safe, empty little life. But Cole wasn't leaving, and neither was I. I loved Sam, in a quiet, steady, familiar way. But with Cole, it was something else. It was wildfire. It was drowning. It was the kind of need that makes you do terrible, beautiful things. One night, in the dark of the abandoned Stanton house, as the wind rattled the broken shutters and dust hung thick in the air, he held my face in his hands and said, "You're gonna break me, Grace Whitmore." And I almost told him the truth, that he'd already broken me, long before the first kiss, long before the first lie. And I didn't care. Not anymore. It was bound to happen. In a town like Windermere, nothing stays secret for long. Whispers started. In the aisles of Miller's grocery, at the pews on Sunday morning, in the tight smiles of women I'd known my whole life. "Grace ain't been herself lately," I heard Millie murmur to Edith Lane. And Sam, God, Sam, he didn't notice, or maybe he chose not to. He came home smelling of diesel and whiskey, slumped into his chair, and never asked where I'd been. But others did. I felt it in the way Sheriff Coley lingered too long when he passed me on Main Street, in the way Mrs. Harper clucked her tongue when I wore my hair down. Even the preacher's wife, with her brittle smile and beady eyes, started asking too many damn questions. And still, I didn't stop, couldn't. Cole would find me. A touch of my hand at the market, a brush of his fingers when passing behind me at the diner, a whispered midnight scrawled in the dust on my window pane. We were reckless, hungry, starved for something neither of us could name. I craved the ache of him, the rough scrape of his stubble against my skin, the burn of his mouth against my throat. I lived for the risk. Each stolen second, each frantic, desperate touch in the shadows felt like a borrowed breath. And I knew, God, I knew it couldn't last. It all unraveled on a Sunday evening, the kind where the sky bleeds red and gold, and the cicadas cry like they know something you don't. Sam had gone to the Harpers to fix their tractor. I told him I had a headache. The second his truck disappeared down the road, I ran, barefoot, heart pounding, across the fields to the old Stanton house. Cole was waiting. The moment I reached him, we collided like a storm. His mouth bruised mine, my nails raked down his back. It wasn't gentle, it wasn't tender. It was a war, and I lost myself in it. I didn't hear the truck pull up, didn't hear the door slam, didn't hear the footsteps on the porch, but I felt the air shift, a cold, hollow stillness that sucked every ounce of heat from the room. And then, Sam's voice, low, flat, deadly. "What the hell's going on here?" I froze, Cole's hand still tangled in my hair. My dress half undone, his shirt hanging open. It was over. Right there. I wish I could tell you what happened next. That I begged, that I cried, that I found words to explain what couldn't be explained. But I didn't. I just stood there, my chest heaving, the ache of Cole's touch still ghosting my skin. And for the first time in my life, I saw what a broken man looked like. Not Cole. Sam. His face crumpled. Not anger, not hatred, but something far worse, a grief so deep, so hollow, it swallowed the room whole. And then he turned, walked out the door, never looked back. I lost them both that night. Cole left town 2 days later. No goodbye, no note, just gone. And Sam stayed, but he was never mine again. I sleep alone now, in that same old house with the peeling wallpaper and the creaky porch swing. The fields grow wild, the cicadas still cry, and some nights, I swear I see a truck's headlights down by Miller's Creek. But it's never him. It's never either of them. And I live with it. Every day. The ache, the emptiness, the echo of two men I loved, in two very different ways. And every time the wind rattles the shutters, I remember what Cole said to me once, with his mouth at my ear and his hands at my hips. Some things ain't meant to be tamed, darlin'. You cage it, you kill it. And God help me, I was the one who struck the match. Part 2, Ashes and Echoes. The days after felt like moving through wet cement. Windmere was a town that could bury you in its silences. The kind of place where eyes followed you from behind lace curtains, and no one had to speak a word for you to feel their verdict. I remember stepping into Miller's grocery 2 days after it happened. The bell above the door jangled like a scream, and the store went quiet. Millie turned her back. Edith Lane pretended not to see me. Even old Tom Mathers, who'd sold me penny candy when I was 7, ducked his head and disappeared down the produce aisle. And I knew. I was done here. It wasn't the stairs that gutted me. It was the absence. The way no one spoke my name. The way conversations died when I passed. Sam came home, but he didn't come home. He slept in the guest room, a room that had held Christmas decorations and old photo albums, and the quilt his mother made when we married. Now it held the ghost of a life we'd burned to the ground. We passed each other like strangers, polite, distant. He never raised his voice, never touched me. And that, somehow, was worse than any anger could have been. I missed him. I missed the man who used to leave wildflowers on the kitchen table. The man who traced my spine with his fingertips in the middle of July, whispering, "You feel like rain on a hot night, Gracie." I'd killed that man. And Cole. I tried not to think of him, but I did. In the way the wind lifted the curtains at night, in the hollow ache between my ribs, in the curve of the road past Miller's Creek, where his truck used to idle. I told myself it was better this way, that the fire had burned itself out. But some fires don't die. They settle in your bones. Waiting. It was one of those summer evenings when the air sticks to your skin, thick and heavy, like the world is holding its breath. The kind of night where the sky lingers a little longer in shades of pink and orange, and the cicadas buzz as though they're screaming for someone to listen. I hadn't expected to see Cole that day. I'd been in Miller's grocery, getting the usual, eggs, flour, a loaf of bread. Sam had been working at the farm, and I had a moment to myself. Just a moment. And that's when I saw him. Cole, standing at the end of the aisle, near the cans of tomatoes. His back was to me, but I felt him, like a shadow, stretching across the floor, filling every corner of the small, quiet space. My heart kicked hard against my ribs. I couldn't move. He turned, and for a moment, we just stood there. His eyes, God, those eyes, the same dark, magnetic pull they always had. I saw the flash of something in them, something dangerous, something wild, and I knew. He saw me, and before I could think, I was walking towards him, drawn like a moth to a flame. Grace. His voice was a low, rough whisper, like it had been caught somewhere deep inside him and it had to fight its way out. "Cole," I whispered back. And then it was as if the world had stopped. I could hear the soft hum of the store, the shuffle of my shoes against the linoleum, but none of it mattered. Only him, only the way he was looking at me. "You're here," he said, his gaze flicking to the basket of vegetables in my hand, but it didn't meet my eyes. "I didn't expect to see you. Not here." My breath caught in my throat. I didn't expect to be here either. But I couldn't say that. Not with Sam back home. Not with the weight of everything pressing down on me. Instead, I smiled. It was a small, sad thing. A smile that didn't reach my eyes. "I'm just getting some things for dinner. I'll walk you home," he said. And there it was. That low, dangerous drawl. The same words he'd whispered to me that first night at the diner, when he'd sat across from me with a devilish grin, and I hadn't known yet how much I was about to lose. I hadn't planned on him following me, but somehow I wasn't surprised. There was something about Cole that made him impossible to escape, like gravity. It was a short walk from the store to the house, just a few blocks, but with every step, the air between us grew thicker, heavier. I could feel his presence behind me, the heat of him, the tension in the way his boots scraped along the pavement. When we reached the porch, I didn't know what to say. What was there left to say? The last time we'd spoken had been that night, in the field, when we'd kissed like we were starving, when the world had been nothing but the two of us, hidden beneath the heavy sky. He didn't speak right away. He just stood there, his hands in his pockets, his jaw clenched. "I shouldn't be here," he said after a long silence. But he didn't move. Neither did I. "I know," I whispered. There was a pause. Then he reached out, his fingers brushing mine, a touch so soft, so innocent, and yet so loaded with everything we couldn't say. "I miss you, Gracie," he said quietly, his voice raw, as if saying it hurt. "I miss you too," I said, though the words felt like they were choking me. I had no idea how to untangle myself from this, from him, from the way he made me feel like I was losing everything and nothing at once. The door behind me creaked open, and I turned just in time to see Sam stepping onto the porch. His eyes darted between us, the tension thick in the air, and for a second, I thought he might say something, do something. But he didn't. He just stood there, hands in his pockets, and stared at me. "Grace," he said, his voice flat, "dinner's ready." I could see the hurt in his eyes, even if he didn't speak it. I saw the way he clenched his fists, like he was fighting something he couldn't control. I wanted to explain. I wanted to say something that would make it better. But I couldn't, because there was nothing to say. Instead, I nodded. Just a small movement. And then I stepped past him, back into the house. I didn't look back. The walls closing in. As the days passed, the air grew colder, tighter, like a noose around my neck. Sam and I never spoke of that night. The way Cole had stood on the porch, just inches from me. The way I'd let myself feel his touch again, like an addict coming back for a fix. But the silence between us was suffocating. Every time I passed Sam in the hallway, his eyes would linger just a second too long. And I could feel the weight of his unspoken questions pressing against me. I was losing him. And the worst part was, I didn't know if I wanted to be saved. The nights grew longer, and the house felt emptier. I was drowning in the space between us, trapped in a world I'd built on lies and lies alone. And then, one evening, the phone rang. I didn't recognize the number. But when I answered, I didn't need to. "Gracie," came the voice on the other end. "Cole." I knew it the moment I heard it. It was like the air shifted again, and everything that had been buried rose to the surface. "Cole," I whispered. "We need to talk," he said, and I could hear the tension in his voice. The same ache I'd felt in him all those months ago. "I'll meet you," I said, before I even realized what I was saying. The price of silence. I stepped into the dimly lit cafe, the same one where Cole and I had first met. The scent of old wood and stale coffee hung in the air, mingling with the faint hum of late-night conversations. It was quiet here, almost too quiet, just the way I needed it to be. I hadn't told Sam I was coming. I didn't need to. I didn't owe him an explanation anymore, and I sure as hell didn't owe myself one. The bell above the door jingled, announcing my arrival, but I didn't care. I was here for one reason only: to face the man who had haunted every waking moment of my life since that night. The man who made me feel alive, even as I was dying inside. Cole was already sitting at the back booth, his broad shoulders hunched as if the weight of the world was pressing down on him. When he looked up, our eyes met, and for a moment, time stopped. The world around us faded. It was just him and me, caught in a moment neither of us could escape. "You came," he said, his voice raw, like he hadn't spoken in days. I didn't answer immediately. I couldn't. Instead, I slid into the booth across from him, the space between us filled with tension and the unspoken truth that we both knew but refused to acknowledge. "I didn't think you'd come," Cole said again, his eyes searching mine, looking for something, anything, to justify this. "You've been avoiding me." I shifted, the guilt pressing down like a weight on my chest. I had been avoiding him, avoiding everything about him, because I couldn't face what I had done. But now, here I was facing him, my heart beating too fast for comfort. "I've been trying to forget," I whispered, the words barely escaping my lips. "I've been trying to forget everything, but I can't. I can't forget you, Cole." His gaze softened, and for a split second, I thought he was going to reach across the table, pull me close, and kiss me like he had that first night. But he didn't. He stayed where he was, just as trapped as I was. "I've never been good at forgetting," he murmured, the corner of his mouth twitching as if he were trying to smile, but it never quite made it. The silence between us stretched, thick and heavy. I could hear the ticking of the clock on the wall, the soft clink of a spoon against a mug, but none of it mattered. All that mattered was Cole. And then, in that silence, something shifted. "You're still with him, aren't you?" Cole asked, his voice quiet but sharp. I didn't answer at first. I couldn't. The answer was too painful to speak. I wanted to tell him the truth, that I had been lying to myself, that I wasn't happy with Sam, not really, but I couldn't bring myself to say the words. "I'm still with him," I finally admitted, my voice breaking under the weight of the truth. "But it's not what it used to be. I'm lost, Cole. I don't know who I am anymore." Cole's hand clenched into a fist on the table, and for a moment, I thought he might lash out. But instead, he reached for his glass of water, his fingers shaking slightly as he brought it to his lips. "I don't want you to be lost," he said, his voice low, but there was something raw in it, something I hadn't heard before. "I don't want you to be lost without me, Grace." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I couldn't breathe for a second. How could he say that? How could he make it sound like I was the one running from him, when all I'd ever done was try to bury what we had? But it wasn't just Cole who was lost. I was lost too. I had been for a long time. The world around me blurred. I could feel the weight of the decision I had to make pressing down on me. I couldn't keep living like this, caught between two worlds, two men, one who knew me better than anyone else, and the other who had been my safe haven. But at what cost? I don't know what to do, I whispered, the tears I had been holding back threatening to spill over. I don't know what I want anymore, Cole. His eyes softened, but the pain in them was undeniable. You don't have to know right now. You just need to let go of what's holding you back. Let go of the lies. The words felt like a lifeline, but they also felt like a chain. I had been clinging to Sam, clinging to the idea of a perfect life, and now that image was falling apart before my eyes. I need to go home, I said, standing abruptly, my hands shaking as I grabbed my bag. Cole didn't stop me. He didn't even try. He just watched as I walked out of the cafe, the door swinging shut behind me with a finality that echoed in my bones. The drive back to the house felt like an eternity. I didn't know where I was going anymore. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. But I knew one thing. I was at a crossroads. I couldn't keep living this lie. I couldn't keep pretending that I was happy with Sam when every part of me was longing for something else. For him. When I pulled into the driveway, the house was dark. Sam's truck wasn't there. I wasn't sure whether I was relieved or disappointed. I didn't have the strength to face him tonight. Not after everything that had happened. But I knew it was coming. The confrontation. The reckoning. I just didn't know if I was ready. But I couldn't keep running. The reckoning. The next morning, I found myself standing in front of the mirror, staring at the woman I didn't recognize anymore. The reflection was still mine, but everything about it felt wrong. The way my hair hung limp around my face, the way my eyes seemed lost. And I knew, deep down, that this was it. The decision had already been made. When Sam came home that night, I didn't wait for him to speak. I didn't let him. "I'm leaving," I said, my voice steady, even though my heart was pounding in my chest. Sam stopped in his tracks, his eyes searching mine, and for a moment, I thought he was going to argue, to beg me to stay. But he didn't. He just nodded, as if he had been expecting this all along. "I know," he said quietly. "I know you're not happy here, but I thought I could fix it." "You can't fix me, Sam. I need to fix myself." The silence that followed was suffocating, but it was also freeing. It was the first time in months that I felt like I could breathe. As I walked out of the door, I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't go back. The road ahead was uncertain, and the choices I had to make were only just beginning. But one thing was clear. I wasn't going to keep living for someone else's version of my life. Not anymore. And whatever happened next, I would face it on my own terms, with or without him. The fall after the breaking, I left the house that night with nothing but a small bag and the sound of Sam's quiet acceptance echoing in my mind. The road stretched out ahead, cold and empty, under the harsh glare of the headlights. And for the first time in years, I didn't know where I was going. But I knew where my heart wanted to be, with him. I drove for hours, the winding country roads blurring into a haze of memories, of stolen glances, of breathless nights, of the terrible, beautiful ache of wanting someone you could never have. And before I even realized it, my car was pulling up in front of his house. Cole. The porch light was off, the windows dark, but I didn't care. I stepped out into the cold, the air sharp against my skin, and walked up to the door. I knocked and waited. The seconds stretched, thick with uncertainty. I felt foolish, desperate, reckless, but I didn't move. Then the door opened, and there he was. His face was shadowed, his hair tousled, as if I'd woken him from some restless sleep. His eyes met mine, and for a long moment, neither of us spoke. "I left him," I said softly. A beat, then another, and without a word, Cole reached out and pulled me into him. His arms wrapped around me, fierce and trembling, and for the first time in months, maybe years, I let myself cry. Great, shuddering sobs that came from somewhere deep, from a place I didn't even know existed. He didn't ask questions. He didn't need to. We both knew what this was, what it meant. That night, we didn't make love. We didn't need to. We lay tangled in each other's arms, the weight of everything we'd lost and everything we still wanted pressing down on us like a storm that had finally broken. The final price. In the days that followed, the world outside didn't stop for us. People whispered. Sam's family called, angry and confused. The small town that had once felt like home turned cold and sharp, its kindness turning to judgment with every passing day. But I stayed. I stayed because for the first time in my life, I was living for myself. Even if it was hard, even if it hurt. But peace was a fragile thing, and fate, cruel in its timing. It happened on a Thursday. I was standing on the porch, watching the clouds roll in, when a car I didn't recognize pulled up the gravel drive. And when the door opened, I felt my stomach drop. Sam. His face was hollow, his eyes sunken, like he hadn't slept in weeks. And behind him, a woman stepped out of the passenger seat. I knew her. Her name was Emily, a girl I'd gone to school with years ago, and in her arms was a child, a small boy with Sam's eyes. It felt like the world stopped spinning. "This is Ethan," Sam said, his voice cracking. "He's mine. He's 5 years old." The words hit like a hammer to the chest. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I stared at the boy, at the woman clutching him protectively, at the man I'd once thought I knew. "You had a child?" I whispered, my voice breaking. "I didn't know," he said, his eyes filling with tears. "I swear, Grace, I didn't know. Emily left town before she told me. She only came back last week." I wanted to scream, to cry, to collapse, but all I could do was nod, because somehow, in some cruel, twisted way, it made sense. The lies, the distance, the empty nights. I wasn't the only one hiding something, the ending we deserved. That night, I sat with Cole under the stars, the two of us wrapped in silence. "I have to leave," I said quietly. His jaw clenched, but he didn't argue. He just nodded. "I need to find out who I am when I'm not someone's wife, when I'm not someone's secret." A long silence stretched between us, and I saw the pain in his eyes, the same pain I felt. "I'll wait," he whispered, his voice thick. "However long it takes, I'll wait." And in that moment, I believed him. I left town the next morning. No promises, no goodbye letters. Just the open road and the rising sun ahead. I don't know where I'm going yet, but for the first time, I'm not running from anything. I'm chasing something. And maybe, someday, when the ghosts have quieted and the storm has passed, I'll come back, And if he's still waiting, if he still remembers the way my name felt in his mouth, maybe we'll find a way back to each other. Or maybe we won't. But at least this time, it will be my choice. And I'll be free. End. Thank you all for listening to our story. Wish you a new day full of energy. Thank you.